How's it going, everybody? Dark Zero here, and I just wanted to apologize for there not being a video last week. The main reason for that was because work and everything was just kind of draining me, so I didn't have the mental fortitude to basically record for that week. And also because of the streams getting in the way. Well, I say getting in the way, it's more of that I had slept through most of the day and woke up just in time to eat and prep for the stream, so that's the reason why I was able to do that but not record. But either way, just rambling right now, sorry. I am sorry that there was no stream not stream, yeah. I am sorry that there was no video last Monday of Gresham Reads, but I will be taking care to ensure that you get a video every Monday. And again, I am sorry, but hopefully this slightly longer chapter makes it up for you.
Greetings, I am Gresham's at all, and welcome back to Gresham Reads Monster Blood Tattoo Book 1, Foundling by D.M. Cornish. Now, I'm sure Dark has put something at the beginning of this, but I would like to apologize in advance for there not being a video last Monday, but do rest assured that I will be continuing on with my endeavors to get through this story with you. And apparently Darkus is making plans to buy the sequel, a book known as Lamplighter, and he is also starting to do research into if there are any more of this, which, given the time frame, I believe he got this book back in high school, and he had graduated in 2012, so he's had this book for some time. But either way, it is, I believe it is time to get started. So, and we begin with, first things first, the definition. Vinegaroon, noun. Also sailor, mariner, seafarer, mareman, bargeman, jack, limey, for the limes he sucks when out to sea, mire dog, old salt, salt dog, scurvy dog, sea dog, or tar. So in other words, a vinegaroon is a title given to someone who sails out at sea? I wonder why that is. Those who work the mighty cargoes and rams that tame the monster-plagued mares and ply the many water-colored waters of the vinegar seas. Oh, I see. Such is the poisonous and caustic nature of the oceans that even the spray of the waves scars and pits a vinegaroon's skin and shortens his days under the sun. Interesting. So the water is much like vinegar, acidic. Quite intriguing. I would not have expected that. But either way, let's see. Okay then, it's fairly simple and straightforward. But either way, let us begin, shall we? Chapter 2. Madame Oprah's Estimable Marine Society for Foundling Boys and Girls. The great Skald Harold stood his ground. His comrades, his brothers in arms, had all fled in terror before the huge beast that stalked their way. This beast was enormous and covered with vicious venomous spines. The Slothog, the slaughterer of thousands, the smiter of tens of thousands. The gore of the fallen dripped from its grasping claws as it came closer and closer. Struggling beast handlers were dragged along as the Slothog strained against its leash. The battle had been long and bloody. Ruined bodies lay all about in ghastly piles that stretched away as far as the eye could see. Harold had fought through it all. His once bright armor was bruised and dented beyond repair. With great heaviness of heart, he checked his canisters and satchels. All his potives were spent. All that is, but one. It would be his last throw of the dice. He fixed the potive in his sling, and taking up the Emperor's glorious standard, cried, "To me, Emperor's men, to me! Stand with me now and win yourself a place in history." But no one listened. No one halted. No one returned to his side to defend his ancient home. Alas, now the Slothog was too close for escape. It paused for a brief and horrible moment. Slavering, it regarded Harold hungrily with tiny evil eyes. Then, with a bellow, it shook off its panicking handlers and charged. With a cry of his own, lost in the din of the beast, Harold swung up his sling and leaped. "Young Master Rosamund, what rot are you reading?" Franzitot, the dormitory master of Madame Oprah's estimable Marine Society for Foundling boys and girls, stood over Rosamund as he sat in a forlorn little huddle, tucked up in his rickety bunk. A great red welt showed on his left cheek and right down his neck. Ghostling had done his work well. The boy looked sheepishly at Master Franzitot as he pressed the thin folio of paper he had been reading against his chest, creasing pages, bending corners. He had been so taken by the tale that he had not heard the dormitory master's deliberate step as he had approached Rosamund's corner down the great length of the dormitory hall. One second. I'm about to turn the page, so I need to get these clips off that I'm using to hold the page down. Book's been closed so long that it's starting to mold back into the shape of closed. It needs to be the spine of it needs to be properly stretched so that it will remain open. But either way, that's something not of concern with the video. "It's one of them awful pamphlets Verlin buys for you, bain't it, me boy?" Franzitot growled. It was the old dormitory who had found him those years ago. Found him with inadequate rags and rotting leaves for swaddling, with tattered sign affixed to his tiny heaving chest. Rosamund knew the dormitory master watched out for him with a care that was beyond both his duty and his typical gruff and removed nature. Rosamund did not pause to wonder why. He simply accepted it as freely as it did Verline's tender attentions. The Foundling nodded even more sheepishly. The gaudily colored titles showed brightly on the cover. The Figleaf Brothers, printers of Toschdigstraat, offer to the discerning reader tales of daring from the age of heroes. Herald us before the gates of Clementine. Dorcas defends the sleeping Dido. Ditto, not sure. He had woken a little earlier after recovering from his dose of Burchett to find the pamphlet sitting on the old tea chest that served as a bedside table. Every second Domesday, when Verline was given a little time to herself, she bought them for the children from a shady little vendor on the Toschdigstraat. Today was Midwich, the day before Domesday. This particular issue must have been bought to him as a special comfort. and Rosamund had snatched it up eagerly. The dormitory master folded his hands behind his back. What will Mr. Pinsome think of me finding you reading these things again? Master Pinsome was one of Rosamund's instructors. He taught the Foundlings matters, letters, and generalities, that is, history, writing, and geography. Rosamund found it endearing, endlessly fascinating that whenever Master Pinsome declared this about himself, he would wave his right hand theatrically, as was done in gala plays, and roll his R's with equal drama. I see what they were trying to do there, so I kind of went with it. That's why I went back. It's not much for me letters, as you know, lad, Francis continued, with a cheeky twinkle in his eye. But Master Pinsome has led me to thinking that reading these here pamphlets will shrivel your mind. Let's just say 'tis a good thing you're recuperating from the beating that spineless braggart of a child Gosling gave you. Else I might have considered confiscating that there folio. He rocked back on his heels and regarded the luminous cover. What's this one about, me lad? Rosamund grinned. The great Skald Harald, champion of the Empire and savior of Clementine. Ah, Francis stroked his clean-shaven chin. Old Harold, is it? Slayer of 1,000 monsters in the Battle of the Gates, savior of the imperial capital? I were a powerful long time ago. Bit ancient history. Wonder how true that version you got there is, though. Why wouldn't it be true? Rosamund looked horrified. Franzitar shrugged. Perhaps 'cause fabrications are easier to sell and more entertaining to read. He leaned in a little. Or perhaps it's a bit of propaganda for the scolds, so we'll like 'em better. Well, I already think scolds are amazing. Would you want to be a scold, Master Franstart? I wish that I was. That, or a vinegar rune, of course. For over 15 centuries, scolds had fought the monsters, so Rosamund had been taught. Indeed, they had made it possible for civilization to endure. They made and used all sorts of powerful, strange, and deadly chemicals to slay monsters or drive them off. They also sold many of their potives and concoctions to everyday folk, allowing them to stand against a monstrous foe as well. Scolds were deeply respected, but they were also thought strange, and it was said they usually stank of the very chemicals in which they trafficked. Though Rosamund had seen many, he'd never been close enough to confirm this reputation. Excuse me. A scold. One of those dark dabblers making all those dangerous smells out of vile potions just waiting to go boom in your face. Wandering about confronting all the beasts and nasties out there? The dormitory master gestured vaguely. I'd be thinking not. He sighed. Folks need him to keep all manner of nasties away, I grant ye. But a scold will spend their days out in the wild countrysides where only their cunning, their chemistry, and the cut of their proofing stand between their next meal and an horrible gashing end. I've had perils enough in me life, and prefer to spend what's left of it safe in these halls behind the city's many walls. And you'll have dangers aplenty when you go to serve on a main ram. A scolding's not for me, lad, or thee either, if you know what's right for you. Would you rather be a Lazar, then? Lazar? I wonder what that is.
You'll find out later.
No, hey Darkus. Heard you coughing in the background.
Yeah. Bit of the cheese kind of
gumming up the throat with the frickin' phlegm. Not fun. Yeah. Well, I'll let you get back to it. Alright. Rosamond ventured, already knowing the answers. Of strange people, Lazars were thought the strangest. Able to do wonderful, terrible things because of secret surgeries done on their bodies. They too fought monsters. Some even said that they were better than the Scolds. There were two kinds of Lazar, Fulgars who could make sparks and flashes of electricity, and Wits who could twist and squash minds, and could sense where monsters and even people were hiding. Fulgars and Wits. Interesting. No one knew exactly whence Lazars had come, but for the last 2 centuries they had made a profound difference in teratology, the proper term for monster hunting. Actually, ology is usually a suffix used for study, but semantics. Scolds were bizarre, but Lazars could be frightening. Almost as frightening as the beasts they fought. Franzatart squinted and sucked in a breath. Abash me, lad. Now I'm certain you've golden me. To let a butcher and surgeon go carving into your rightly ordered gizzards. And guts? What's the use of it? I'm with the Scolds. They were doing a fine job of the killing and the slaying and the lording over we lesser folk for centuries afore them Lazars came along. Give me a Scold over a Lazar on any given day, bless me eyes. Knickers and Boggles were the names most folk gave to the monsters. Okay, I'm not sure where that came from, but Knickers for the bigger ones, Boggles for the smaller, though this rule wasn't fixed. Okay. Rosamond closed his eyes as he tried to imagine a Lazar battling with some giant Knicker. I'm not even going to say anything. The dormitory master sat down on the end of Rosamond's sagging cot, rousing him. Franzatart gave the boy a serious look. I've had to share cabin space with a few Lazars in my time, you see. Both the lightning grasping Fulgar and the head blasting Wit. Excuse me. You have? Rosamond sat up. He had heard many of the dormitory master's tales, tall and true. But Franzatart had never told him this before. What were they like? What were they like, Master Franzatart? Did you see the marks on their faces? Did they fight any monsters? I have. And their spores on the foreheads were clear, and they did fight with as many Knickers as they found, and did many worse things too. And after each meeting, I was always mightily glad to be free of their company. Franzatart looked at his feet for a moment. Rosamond wondered what he was remembering. They are strange, he finally went on, and the unnatural... So that's a sketch of Franzatart. Alright. Their unnatural organs within their bodies make them so strong, make them crotchety, feverish. Many a queer thing I've seen, but nothing quite so wretched as a Lazar made sick by his organs. Come on, clip. There we go. He stared intently at Rosamond. My master's lad, neither thee nor me wants to become one of them. Stick to a vinegaroon's life. 'Tis a good, honest way to chance your fortune. Well then, tell one of your stories, Rosamond persisted, his pamphlet forgotten for the moment, of when you were a sailor upon the seas, Tell me about the Battle of the Mole when you were saved by that white-haired fellow, or when you fought against the pirate king of the Brigandine, or when you captured that Lentine Grand Cargo as a prize. Nay, me boy. You know mostly already, especially since them their second two, the dormitory master, lapsed into silence. Rosamund became quiet for a moment too, inspecting the illustration of Harold battling the Slothog on a page of his pamphlet. In the drawing, the skull looked as if he was about to be trampled. Franzitart stood. The boy looked up at his dormitory master shyly. Master Franzitart, he ventured, have you ever killed a monster? For a moment, Franzitart seemed almost angry at this question, and Rosamund immediately regretted asking it. Old salts like the dormitory master could be very touchy about their past. It was proper never to ask, but always wait to be told. With the deepest sigh, the saddest sound Rosamund had ever heard Master Franzitart give, the fury passed. Aye, lad, he said hoarsely, I have. Thrill prickled Rosamund's scalp. The old man closed his eyes for a moment, and did something the boy had never seen him do before. He took off his long, wide-collared day coat and laid it neatly on the end of another cot. Franzitart rolled up the voluminous sleeve of his white muslin shirt, exposing much of his pale left arm. He bent down a little to show his gauntly knotted bicep. Look ye there, Franzitart growled. Wide eyes went wider as the boy saw what was shown. Made from swirls and curls of red-brown lines was the small, crudely drawn face of some grinning, snarling boggle. A pointed tongue protruded obscenely from a gaping mouth, and its eyes were wide and staring horribly. A monster blood tattoo. I wonder if it's the mark that's on the side, on the spine of the book, not the side. It's potentially. Well, I better get back. This video is starting to kind of drag on a little bit. People were only ever marked with a monster blood tattoo if they had fought and slain a knicker. The image of the fallen beast was pricked into the victor's skin with the dead monster's own blood. The stuff reacted strangely once under the skin, festered for a time, and left its indelible mark. The boy looked agog at his dormitory master. He already had a deep respect for the old man, but now he regarded him with an entirely new awe. Master Franzitart, you're a monster slayer. Most folk would be bursting with pride to bear such a mark. Franzitart just seemed ashamed. As things be, Rosamund, the creature I killed did not deserve such an end. And though me shipmates boast me an arrow, it were a cowardly thing that I did, and I am sorry for it now. Rosamund's astonishment grew. How could killing a monster be cowardly? How was it that Master Franzitart could be ashamed of being a hero? To kill a monster was a grand thing, almost the grandest thing. Everyone knew that. People were good, monsters were bad. Things are not so black and white, are they, Rosamund? People had to kill monsters in order to live free and remain at peace. To feel sympathy for a boggle or to take pity on a knicker was to be labeled a Sidorner, a monster lover. A shameful crime that at the very least had its perpetrator shunned, or stuck in the pillory for weeks, or worst of all, executed by hanging. How many secrets did the dormitory master have? Was he a secret Sidorner? Rosamund went pale at the notion. The more serious Master Francis became the quieter his voice. He was almost whispering now. Hearken to me, me lad. Not all monsters look like monsters, do you get me? There are everyday folk who turn out to be the worst monsters of them all. There's things I need to tell you, Rosamund. Strange things. Things that might appear shocking on the first listening. But you're going to need to begin to get your head about them. Something caught his attention. Dormitory master shut his mouth with a sudden click and quickly pulled down his shirt sleeve. A moment later, Verlaine entered at the far end of the long dormitory hall. Francis gave Rosamund a look that said not a word of this to anyone. Surely he was about to tell him the whole shocking adventure. Now that he had been interrupted, the dormitory master might never finish telling what he thought such an obviously terrible, maybe even shameful, secret. What dark mysteries could Francis possibly have to tell that made him so hesitant to speak them out? Rosamund doubted he would ever have the courage to ask him to venture on the subject again. The boy had never regretted Verlaine's presence, or thought of her as intruding, but right then, he came close. The parlor maid was bearing a light lamp, a lantern holding phosphorescent algae that glowed strongly when in the presence of immersed in a special liquid within. Good Lord, my tongue is getting twisted right now. I don't know why. And approached with an open smile. With a sinking heart, Rosamund discovered that she was once again carrying the crock of birchit. A good evening. That hit me at the worst possible time. A good evening to you, Dormitory Master Francis, she said softly, with a dip of her comely head. Francis nodded his typically grave and silent greeting, straightening the broad collar of his coat. Verlaine put the bright limb on the tea chest. She waggled the turned ladle at Rosamund seriously. Time for another spoon of birchit, dear heart. Master Crampolin has kept it warmed especially for your second dose. Rosamund once more submitted to the cleansing fires of birchit. Once more he endured its agonies and came out the other side restored. With another belch of bubbles, he thanked Verlaine. She smiled, putting on the crock beside the bright limb. Verlaine felt his forehead with a small, cool hand and peered at his bruises. I think you are mending nicely, dear. Glory on Crampolin's chemistry. The swelling is definitely going down. But then you have always mended quickly. The dormitory master made an odd sound in his throat, and then looked at Rosamund gravely. Aye, Crampolin knows his trade. I reckon, though, that even he would agree with me that in recommending that the next time Gosling takes a shot at your skull, Rosamund, you duck. The best salve for a wound is to avoid ever getting one. And the Foundling looked down at the cover of his pamphlet sheepish once more. Aye, dormitory master, he answered softly. Francis put a gentle hand on Rosamund's bruised head. Good lad, he growled, with an almost tender smile. Right, time for supper. Rosamund struggled into his evening smock, a shapeless sack with sleeves that all the children wore to dinner or supper. Master Franstart, what will happen to Ghostling? He asked. Franstart frowned. The little bastard will be skipping tonight's food and has been set about cleaning out the second salt cellar, the buttery, and the shambles. I'm just off now to inquire as to his progress. Probably not done him any sort of good. Probably blaming everyone else and excusing himself as typical. A riot of Ettins could not do more than us to get the wretched child to mend his errors. He shook his head. That's enough on that. Off you hop, Rosamund. Say your prayers, clean yourself off before the meal. I'll see you in the dining hall. Though he was sure that she had not meant it so. As he left the hall, Rosamund overheard Verlaine saying quietly, "What a dear, sensitive boy," and Master Franstart rasping in reply, "Aye, too sensitive and too earnest for his own good. It'll be trouble and agony for him all his life if he don't get shrewder and tougher, just mark me. I can't watch out for him all the time." The boy brooded as he followed the narrow passages with their many doors, flaking walls, and damp smells. By bewildering turns and many short flights of stairs that he went down, then up, then down once more, he went first to the basins and then to the dining hall. How might he be shrewder? How might he be tougher? How might he avoid this future of trouble and agony that Franstart foresaw? How might he get his dormitory master to finish telling him of those strange and shocking things he dared not speak in front of Verlaine? Madame Opera's estimable marine society for foundling boys and girls was situated on the Vlinderstraat, between a rat-infested warehouse and a stinking tannery. The Vlinderstraat had once been a rather fashionable avenue in a rather fashionable suburb of Poem. I think that's how it's pronounced. In the proud riverine city of Boschenberg. The building itself was tall and narrow, made of dark stones and dark decaying wood. Sagging under many additions to its original structure. It had been in Madame Opera's family through a great list of generations. Rosamund had heard this list read out once, and it went on so long he fell asleep during the telling. Quite a long family business, I suppose. The 100 children who had once been unwanted or lost or both lived here to be taught a trade and skills so that they might be wanted as adults. And the organization that wanted them most was a seemingly bottomless sink of manpower, the Navy. It was the Boschenberg Navy that sponsored the running of this marine society and several others. It was the Boschenberg Navy that provided the Foundlingery with its masters, men like Franstart and Krompalin. Each one an aging vinegar pensioned off to serve the few days left in him as an instructor to discarded children. Every Marine Society boy and girl was taught to long to join the Navy. It was widely known that a fellow could set himself up for good with the prize money won when pirates or enemy vessels were captured. That you joined a family when you joined a crew of a ram. A very appealing idea to the foundlings at Madame Opera's. That every landlubber thought you were a grand chap for serving your state so honorably, and that you were better paid and better fed than most of the folks doing similar work on land. Rosamund was no different. He too had learned to desperately want a life on the vinegar waves. The vinegar waves. The thought always made him wistful. Though he had never seen the sea, Rosamund knew that its waters were tainted with caustic salts that gave it lurid colors and made it stink like strong vinegar. He could hardly wait till the day when he got to fill his lungs full of the sharp odor of the sea. The Navy was not the only employer of Marine Society boys and girls. Other agencies happily took on Madame Oprah's children, the army with its smart uniforms and regular meal times, the mathematicians with their numbers and demand for genius, their rivals, the concometrists, who measured the length and breadth of everything, and various miscellaneous trades and guild halls, seeking apprentices or workers. The agents arrived to make their selection at a set time in a year. The hiring season started early in the week of Kalo, the first month of summer, and the first month of the year. Interesting. Darkus, I hear you back there.
Yeah, sorry.
Right. It ended the last week of Kakris, the second month of autumn, before the weather became unfriendly for easy travel. This was a time of great anticipation and glee, the older children always eager to make good their escape, the middle children keen to become top dogs of the Foundlingery, and the young ones excited simply by the atmosphere of expectation and change. Rosamund had watched it happen many times already over the years, but this year it was his turn to take part. Yet, for some inexplicable reason, each time the hiring agents had come, he had been passed over. He did not know why, and no one said. The agents just came, reviewed a lineup of all the older children, asked questions of the masters and Madame Oprah, and read out a tally of their choices. He knew he was not very tall or impressive looking, like others around his age. He also knew that he was clumsy, that he had trouble tying the knots Master of Ropes Hittlebolt taught, that there were times when his mind would wander and duties be left incomplete. Yet Rosamund did know a thing or two. Not only had he learned a simple dispensing from Crumpollen, but he knew a good deal of history too. The Emperor ruled all that mattered, and the Emperor's regents had control over the scores of ancient city-states that made up the Empire. City-states like Boschenberg, clinging to the coast in fertile places. Darkus, stop swinging that around before you hit me in the head.
Oh, sorry.
And also the shaking of the dice in that bag is kind of being picked up. Alright, let's see, where did I leave off? There we go. It was an empire founded 1600 years ago by the great hero Dido, although the current dynasty, the Jacobins, were usurpers and not of Dido's line. Rosamund had read of the many battles on land and sea. City-states warred with each other, and with their imperial master for yet more control. He knew of soldiers, musketeers, halberdiers, trobardiers, and the rest, and especially about the great rams, giant ironclad vessels of war that prowled the vinegar seas, their decks congested with mighty cannons. Well, mighty cannon, but still. He knew the names of famous marshals, legendary admirals. He had read of the Skalds, of course, and had even seen a few of those who had served as his own city. He was fascinated by the Lazars, but most of all, he knew about monsters. He knew that there was an everlasting struggle, the ever-present battle between humankind and the Boggles and Knickers and the Natterers, the sea monsters. Much of what he read grandly declared that humankind was winning, that the monsters were in steady retreat, that one day they would be exterminated from all the Empire. Yet, occasionally, Rosamund read some article nervously suggesting that in fact, the bitter fight twixt man and Boggle was, at best, locked in stalemate, at worst, that humankind was losing. A terrible thought, people driven into the sea by slavering, relentless terrors. Yes, Rosamund did know a thing or two, yet 6 times now this hiring season, men from the Navy Board and other agencies have been around to review the hopefuls. 6 times now, children have been selected. Sorry. Just got a crick in my neck. Sorry about that. 6 times now, children have been selected to go and lead adventurous lives. So many now that the eldest and most of the second eldest were gone, never to return. 6 times now, Rosamund had been passed over. One of the eldest children in the Foundlingery he might now be, if still not one of the tallest, but this was a little compensation for the shame of being left behind. He had been left behind by Providence knows who as a baby, and now it seemed he was being left behind again. He was certain that he could not stand yet another year stuck in the cramped halls of moldering wood and old cold stone. Ghostling, too, was waiting to be chosen for work outside the Foundlingery. It was his only chance to achieve all the things for which his high birth had destined him, as he often boasted. In the last 5 months, child after child had been selected to take up his or her long-awaited occupation, but not Ghostling. In a raging sulk, he had set about a regime of spiteful pranks, most failing owing to Franz-Tart's shrewd vigilance. But it was Rosamund he specially tormented. 2 weeks after the incident at her rondo practice, Ghostling somehow found him reading a small book about rams. Rosamund had hidden himself away in the tiny garret library of sagging wood, precariously extending from the roof of the main building. It was all but forgotten by most. Dust was so thick on the floor that Ghostling had been able to sneak up behind Rosamund and poke him as hard as he could. Rosamund was not startled. He could always smell Ghostling well before he saw or even heard him. Whiling away the hours, are we? Ghostling snarled, unhappy that he had failed to spook his victim. He snatched away Rosamund's reader and made to ruin it. Rosamund had played this game before. He simply folded his arms and frowned. Preparing to go aboard your precious rams, eh? Fat load of good reading these is done. Ghostling leaned right into Rosamund's face. Don't think you're any better than me, my lad. You're still here too, milady. You're still here too. No one wants you. Ghostling stood straight, his arms folded and his nose in the air. My family will be coming back for me soon, you'll see. And then I'll show you who's better. Ghostling had been saying this ever since he had been taken into the Foundlingery. His expression took on an even nastier curl. Not even old friends of ours will make you feel better then, when you're left behind and watch me go back to the quality I was born to. Don't say his name like that, warned Rosamund. Or what? Or what? What a fine bunch you and he would make, rosy-posy and old friends of heart. What a stink. Rosamund scowled. He treats you as good as anyone, and better than you deserve. Call me what you like, but leave your betters out. As true as it might be, this sounded lame even to Rosamund, and had no effect at all on his tormentor. He's a pock-faced old ignoramus, and when Mama and Papa come back for me, I'll get them to buy the whole stinking tottering place, then kick him and the rest out to rot, or burn this all down to the cellar. Rosamund was speechless. He glared and spluttered. He failed to defend the honor of his dormitory master, or of a lion, or anyone else. Ghostling swaggered off, sneering and making noises like a baby. Ooh, I'd better stop. Madame Rosie's going to make me eat my nasty little words. Ooh. Just before he disappeared through the warped wooden door, he hurled Rosamund's reader at him. Rosamund ducked, but it still managed to glance his left cheek. That's the last time, Rosamund vowed to himself. Days gathered into weeks. Rosamund despaired utterly of ever receiving an offer of employment. Then, with the end of the hiring season, Then, with the end of the hiring season 3 weeks gone, and the cold month of lyrium well underway, an official-looking stranger arrived at the Foundlingery. He was shown about the institute by Madame Oprah. None of the news of the arrival and the tour flashed around the Foundlingery more quickly than a burst of a scald's potive. While sitting alert in Master Pinsom's Matters, Letters and Generalities class, Rosamund spotted the stranger watching the proceedings from the door, giving the distinct impression, or the distinct air of seeing all and missing none. When gaps in his duties allowed, Rosamund continued to watch the stranger furtively, silently nursing his urgent, yearning hope for a new life of adventure and advancement. He observed Ghostling doing the same from a different vantage. Perhaps here was someone within an offer of employment for one of them. Perhaps for both. Perhaps on this very ordinary mid-autumn afternoon, one of their lives was about to be changed forever. But after the 7th bell of the afternoon watch, it was Rosamund who was summoned to Madame Oprah's rather large, riotously cluttered boudoir cum office. Ghostling would not be pleased. And I don't think that should be any concern of yours, Rosamund. And that is the end of the chapter. That one was much longer. But still, not too long, so either way, I thank you all for joining me for this video. If you enjoyed this chapter, feel free to support the author by obtaining a copy of the book for yourself if you wish to read along. So far, the story is a slow beginning, but I am intrigued to see what will come about of it.
Yeah, and I'm definitely interested to read the sequels to this as well.
Right, but either way, I believe that we'll call it for this since it's gone for 46 minutes so far. Well, of recording. Editing is going to be a little bit longer.
Yep, because I will be adding something at the beginning, mainly an apology.
Yes, I did anticipate you would, but either way, thank you all for joining me. Make sure to share the video around. Your views do help this channel to grow, and every interaction grows the channel as well, and brings us one step closer to doing this full time. So that we can finally quit the jobs we're doing right now and, well, do this as our career, because we greatly enjoy it.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
It's quite warm in here. It's making me slightly drowsy.
Yeah, I think I might go turn on the AC real quick and cool things down a little bit.
But either way, make sure to also subscribe to the channel and ring the notification bell. And also make sure to subscribe to the channel. Well, I already just said that. I meant make sure you also check out Darkest whenever he streams. He streams every Thursday and Friday at the moment. His schedule could change, but we don't know for sure just yet. In the meantime, I will see you all in the next chapter. I am Gresham's at arm, and I do hope you have a pleasant day.